we are going to bring it to the ground of Uganda or East Africa. So it was a global, but we have to put it into contextualization and bring it to Uganda's perspective. So the study was funded by European Union as under the project of YD, and it also looks at civic engagements, and that is under partnership with democracy. We also see the purpose of the study or the research. The aim was to empower youth voices, foster international cooperation, and address gaps in evidence on youth politics engagement. So we want to do more engagements of youth when it comes to political issues. Also, the index represents its first attempt as it collected data from young people in different aspects, as it was done on 4 dimensions, as we are going to see. And the study was in 141 countries, and in the sub-Saharan African countries, it was in 40 countries. So, the study had 4 dimensions and it had 41 variables. And when we go to context of Uganda and East Africa, we see the median age. Uganda, it is 16.9. That is under UPOS report 2024. East Africa, the median age is 17.5. That is UN report 2022. And Africa, the general, is 19. Statistics 2024. And for the global, the median age is 31.4 years. That is UN and World Population Review Report 2026. So when we look at the age, we shall see what they considered in this research. The age of a young person, they considered from 15 to 30. So Africans are engaged in different spaces. We can say on civic spaces, political spaces. We also ensure we need to make sure that there is inclusion in different aspects in those 4 dimensions that we shall see in the next slide. So we shall also look at sustainable development goals and the challenges we are facing as youth, or barriers we face in different aspects on the 4 dimensions. So we have myths and reality. So DIPI provided statistical data, and it says that statistical data to advance youth participation and dispel key messages on youth participation. So they gave an example. They say young people don't participate in politics because they are pathetic and live in their own world. That's a myth. And the reality is, it reveals that many young people face extremely high barriers to participate in political institutions. They are often shut out rather than disengaged. So the world assumes that we are in our own world as young people. That's why we don't participate in issues that does with politics, civic engagements. But the reality is, there are some barriers that are hindering us. So we shall go into details, and it will be an engaging platform for you to give in your inputs. So here the research was carried or it was conducted by research team which had the data collectors. They had 9 young people in various countries advising the research team. The 66 data collectors were involved, and the lead team was CEDA, that is Center of Elections, Democracy, Accountability and Representation at the University of Birmingham. So here are the 4 key dimensions, 41 variables, and the research was carried in 141 countries. And under the dimensions, we have first dimension, we have election dimension. So under elections, we shall look at voting age. When we go to Uganda, Ugandan is supposed to vote at what age? You are allowed to vote when you reach which age? 18. Yeah. So we have youth trauma in national elections. We have extent of free and fair elections. I think that one was discussed, whether we have free and fair elections in South Africa, in Africa in general. We have accessibility of voting processes. We also have another dimension, which is civic space dimension. Under civic space, this is the civic space engagement that we are in. So we shall see percentage of youth who signed a petition, whether they are there, we can know from you. We have our civic society index. We have level of civic society, the position, level of government efforts. We have internet access. Every young person have access to internet. So we don't want to look it at a ground perspective. We have to go beyond. In urban, access to internet is easy, or majority access internet. But when we go to village, how many do have access to internet? So I need you to look into such perspectives. Freedom to peace, peaceful assemblies, freedom to religion. Yeah, in some countries you can express your religion, but in some it is totally difficult where the research was done. So there is quality of freedom and expression. There is quality of political rights. Do we know our rights when it comes to politics? Do we know? So can you give me like 2 rights that we have?
According to the Constitution of Uganda, if you are above 18, within the right procedures, you have the right to vote, and your vote should be counted.
Thank you. We have the right to vote. Any other right? You agree that you have a right to protest? Okay. So we have political affairs dimension. That is our 3rd dimension. So under politics, there is age requirements. Either to stand for a position, either to vote. So that one is very clear. We have presence of national youth policies. In research, we encourage you more to read. It's all about reading and get accurate data. So you should look at the national youth policy. Uganda, we have the national youth policy. If you go on internet, you can search and read on the national youth policy. We have to presence of youth party associations. often called sections or wings. In Uganda, we have political parties, so you have freedom to belong to any political party of your choice. There is representation of young people in the legislature. So, young people, are they presented? Do they take part in making policies, in taking part in decision making on different laws that govern in this country? There is access to state jobs by class. So they looked at those dimensions, those factors were considered under political affairs. Under social dimension, it looked at primary school completion rate in Uganda, how many people complete primary. For example, the statistics shows majority joins primary, but the completion rate drops, and they normally report why. What are those factors that result into school dropouts at primary, at secondary, at the higher institutions? They are normally captured. Not in education, they looked at factors why they are not in education, employment, or in trainings. So those rates were also captured by this indicator or dimension. They also looked at proportion of youth seeking work, who are employed, who are not employed. It looked at employment levels in different countries. It also looked at education equality. Do we have access to better education? Do some people access better quality education than others? So those are the factors we are looking at. There was absence of arranged marriages. Also, marriage was put into consideration by this socio-economic. So here is a general dimensions how we are using in collecting this research to make it easy and understandable. So they look at socio-economic dimensions, civic dimensions, political affairs, and election dimensions. Are we familiar with dimensions? Because here it is easy to see these dimensions. In the next part, we are going to be talking with figures, showing the difference. Why was it high in this country? Why was it low? So we need to live when we are okay with dimensions. Are we okay with dimensions? Know that in our research or in this index, they consider socioeconomics. That's where we look at employment, marriages, and other factors we are put into consideration. On civic space, we are looking at, do you have freedom to speak? Are you given platforms? Political, they are looking at age. They are looking at policies that are in place that can limit you or that can give you opportunity to participate in political affairs. Elections, how elections are conducted. So here we are starting with statistics. Under those dimensions, political, under global index, it looks at participation of youth in politics, in elections, in socio-economic. So they generalized. They looked at political affairs only. The score was 51, and on elections it's 54. And this one represents 141 countries. It's not only for one country. It represents all the 141 countries. On socio-economic, it goes to 77, and on civic space, it is on 62. And they came with the overall global youth participation index. How do youth engage? How do youth participate? Of 61 as the score. So this score, we shall be relating it into the context of Uganda. Uganda, how do we score compared to the general? This is for the whole 141 countries. So we shall look at East Africa. We compare our Uganda with Kenya, with Tanzania, and see their scores. That's where we can get what works better for Uganda, what recommendations can we give for Uganda side, and what recommendations for South Africa. There, are we together? So we are going to use this for data. We are going to do a simple group exercise. And here are the questions. Let me see how we can form the groups. You want to first get your views after we give out some information. So we shall do 1, 2, 3. We shall have 3 groups. You count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 like that. So you are 1. You count. Count 1, 1 equal to. No, yeah.
1, 2.
You are 1. 3. 1. Okay, so we shall have this group for the 3. So you are 1. 3. So all ones will be on this table. Feel free, and we have limited time. All ones here, 2s will be here, and the 3s here, and we shall have our first group here. We do this simple group work. Let us shift. Okay, the 2s are here. 2s will come this side, 1 that side, 3s here. The 4th group is here. We have 20 minutes to do this work, and we'll go back to our seats. Are we set? In 1 minute.
You got a leader, we shall present. Each group will present. Group will present, and if you have downloaded the each group will present 5 minutes. present, make sure you have examples based on the experience that you have in your community, in your advocacy, in your civic engagement. Make sure you put those examples. For example, when you are standing there in your community, what happened, those explanations could give us a clear picture of what is really on ground. So if it's going to read for you,
are we ready for a question? So it's the first one is a statement. So listen carefully. I'm going to read it to you. In your groups, explore how data from Global Use Index can be a powerful tool for advocacy. How can we use the Global Use Participation Index data as a tool, a powerful tool for advocacy? That's the first statement. So we require each group to imagine they are preparing a campaign. As a group, we are preparing a campaign on a specific theme. So identify which data points from the index can support this cause.
I think members, Yusuf has taken you through the key dimensions. From those dimensions, he has again taken you through some of the key variables. I want to know they are in your group. Some of you have captured one or two. So you could identify which may be variable. You don't need a lot. Maybe you could look at the age for one to stand for a political position. For you, you can use that as a case for your advocacy. You get? So for socioeconomic, you look at maybe primary school completion rate in your community. What challenges, maybe how could you use that primary school completion rate as a tool to advocate for civic engagement for such group of people who don't complete primary and would want to. So while you may use the socioeconomic indicator, you could now break it down to a few. I'm trying to give you a simple highlight, but if you have been following, we are trying to see how we can use this for advocacy. So it says in this group exercise, in your group now, you explore how this data from the GYPI, which is the Global Youth Participation Index, can be turned into a powerful tool for advocacy. Meaning, you are using this report to design a project or to do advocacy. Are you getting it? We are using this in this exercise. You explore, I am going to explore how we can use this data or the report for advocacy. Yes. You can use the advocacy for media. Because you have the way you want to design. How would you use this data as a tool for advocacy? How? In which way? So the percentages we are ideally what they did, they were checking for countries whether they have this data. Okay. So a country where this data was captured was Russia. So the way in capturing what is the average?
We want us to use the number
So we have 20 minutes to do that group work.
If they talk of the 51%
had the highest score, you get touches so that's how
we are asking what happens to 49. What can we do
in your own space, the way you
to
think
bridge
about
this
it,
gap from the 49
based on this 40,
For example, if you have
the
seen
global
the
participation index,
participation of young people in
you could
economic
explore how you can use this data.
dimension.
All this data will not provide you the
How can we improve?
relative comparison with the percent, but to give you the participation socio-economic. So you could dig deep to concentrate like on a variable like you get. So you are trying to explore those people maybe who don't complete primary and what challenges we face, and yet the others they have aspiration to participate in some civic engagements like this one. You get. I will try to understand. So now what we have, now the question looks like I was trying to build an effective advocacy campaign. So you are going to, ideally you design an advocacy campaign and your problem should maybe come from the index. Like maybe according to, but I'm trying to give you, you get what I'm saying. You are using the tool to design a campaign. You understand such a thing? An advocate, an effective one. So the topic of the campaign is removing prohibitive age barriers to elective. Now for here they have even given you an example on one variable. Removing prohibitive age barriers to elective positions. Write your answer on the scripture. So here they say removing, the topic of the campaign, removing prohibitive age barriers to elective campaign. So your idea is designing a campaign. You get? I don't know whether you are understanding. Yeah? Are we understanding? Now you have understood. So you could try to explain to you a few words with this simple task. We have 5 minutes. Every group to get the leader and to present.
Depending on the statistics, they can depend on
Not tomorrow. We need to get these answers. So when you look at the dimensions, political affairs. When you look at political affairs, you realize that the highest was 62 and the lowest score was 28. Elections, the highest score 81, but we are seeing some lowest score 0. Some countries, somewhere, the score is 0. But now, you realize that on average, the performance is low. So when you look at the political affairs dimension, the figures are there. If you want, we shall share. We go to the next. Among the top performers on political dimension, you realize that issues like state employment of youth and trust in political parties were the major factors for high performance on this indicator. We can check another one, civic space. You realize that you see like in the top 10, East African country was there on civic space. So when you go back to civic space, there is a question: why East African countries, why are we performing poorly on civic space? We go to the next dimension. Socio-economic, those are education and the like, where we ideally performed better. Tanzania, you see, Kenya, like we go to school, we have, at least there is some, the completion rate is, primary school completion rate has, like, few indicators like primary school completion rates are somehow better for countries like Uganda, Tanzania, and the like. So you see that some of the drivers for youth participation in politics, and we have them there. When you go and download the report, you are going to find a lot on. So some countries have put up campaigns. In Uganda, we have a few campaigns like Hope for Life Uganda has been implementing this project to uplift youth to take part in civic space. It is an example that you could really put across as one that could push more young people to engage civic spaces. Some narratives here: young politicians, leaders and decision makers should not be seen as a novelty, an exception, or a surprise. So as youth here, we need to really take part. So we have a simple link where we're going to share some of your recommendations that would really improve youth participation in civic space, socio-economic, and all other dimensions. So we are going to share. It is already there. You could scan. Those who have a CAM scanner, you scan and you answer those questions. We shall be getting the feedback as it comes, so that we we champion this cause of youth participation. So I think now the next is, but you scan everyone. If you cannot, you can even come closer, you scan. Make sure you scan, you come closer. You feel free, you come closer and scan. And make sure you answer the question, because that's how we can really get the impact of.
So look at the factors that the benefit for participating in political affairs. One of the factors was education levels. We know it very well. We know it very well that for each contest paper, particular position, there are some education standards that are required. For example, if we contest for MP, we need to have at least a level certificate. Now, for education levels low, the index also shows that dropout rates are a bit high. Some people stop in primary. Some people drop out in primary, others secondary, and others maybe, let's say they just stop at secondary. Now, if the dropout rates are high, what could be the causes? One, we looked at school fees. Some are poor and cannot afford school fees. Remember yesterday, Praise told us in our district, some parents cannot even afford 20K for school fees. So how do we handle the issue of school fees? We say that free education, the government should provide free education. The schools are there, right? But they are being monitored somehow. Some schools charge money for feeding and so on, so it limits some parents that do not have the money. We looked at lack of career guidance. We said that from the better by counseling. There should be counselors. I think that should be a government program and should be implemented. The other thing is early pregnancies. That also can be sorted by counseling for youth leaders, parents, and so on. Then long distances to schools. We realize in villages some pupils have to walk for 2 kilometers or even 5 kilometers to access education. So the government should implement a program whereby at least every parish should have a primary school. If possible, even every village.
1 minute. Finish.
The other issue was mistreatment by teachers. Strict rules should be implemented. All this will reduce also conflicts for study and lab papers. The other issue was lack of finances. We say the government should reduce on nomination fees. Then monetization of politics should be reduced. The government should implement laws whereby people are not allowed to bribe during politics time. Then threats from other political leaders. We realize that some politicians or youth are always intimidated from those are already occupying those positions. So we looked at that this issue and we were like, government should follow up such cases. And if there is any case of intimidation of someone willing to stand for a particular position, that should be handled by court. Then we also realize there is a lack of confidence. Some people could be having the papers and willing to contest, but they don't have the confidence. That one can be handled by seminars. Maybe there should be a program whereby people are given some political education prior to election time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, group. Can we be here, group 2. So their campaign is probably is you are going to see the topic. But key messages have been captured, and some of them have the seminars and the like. Thank you, group 2. We give them a clap. Thank you, group 2. Then some other group ready. Can we have, if you could come in, let's do it very fast. 2 minutes, you can present your topic or your the same. Recite the index, get a problem from the index. Then the how are you going to solve it? Thank you. Very fast.
Yes, good morning once again. I'm representing the group 3. We looked at political affairs dimension, and we identified our gap, or the major gap, where we are seeing the hindrance of young people or youth in participating in political affairs of this country, Ghana. So we came up with our advocacy point, that is a call for a strengthened, effective and working affirmative action for young people, for youth, to enable them actively and meaningfully participate in the political affairs of the country. We identified, actually, when you go deep to the dimensions, the whole 4 dimensions will eventually intertwine and affect the whole political engagement and political life of a young person, or of a young person. That's why we are saying that we need to challenge. There is a key challenge, that is the limited access to the resources that facilitate the meaningful participation of youth in the political affairs of the country. The resources that are not necessarily the monetary resources, whereas the monetary resources is the key factor, but we have even the other resources, like my colleague that first presented hinted on them, the level of education. If we are seeing the dropouts, the completion rate is low, people are not finishing the primary level, how do you expect them to engage fully with the political affairs of the country? For example, interpreting the policies and understanding them, then as young people associating freely to talk about these issues, it will get hard. So we are saying, if we can break the barrier to access by enabling a strengthened, effective and working affirmative action, because we already have affirmative action for the special interest groups. for example, National Youth Council. But we are saying National Youth Council is not doing enough. It has not given us the ample space and required resources. It's not important to have the required resources for young people to actively and meaningfully engage in the political affairs of the country. You see, they are limited, they be complaining of limited budget to carry out the national engagement with youth. They end up doing the regional. If we are still having access of only 5 MPs, the biggest number of the country, we have only 5 MPs out of 500 that are making the policies and laws for the country. That means that their voices in the democratic world we are in can't be heard. So we need to challenge that and make it effective that the youth voices can be heard.
Thank you, team group 2. Group 3, thank you so much. We can have group 1. Your presentation is ready on the projector. You have 2 minutes. Your theme, your problem, this target group, how are you going to reach them, and what are the messages you are putting out?
Thank you so much. My name is Gumia Dennis and I'm representing Mighty Group 1. I'm also a climate advocate. That's how we are dealing with waste management. We are digitizing our presentation. So we came up with our advocacy campaign on election dimensions. Basically, we are targeting the low voter turnout in these elections. And yesterday we had it in Uganda in the recent concluded elections of 2021 and 2026, where instead of increasing, we actually had a decrease from 57.22 in 2021 to 2.3 in 2026. This one is based on several causes, as we discussed yesterday. We have biasness of the voters, and then we have long distances. Some people are here in Kampala, and maybe they have to travel and vote from Kisoro. Then we have violence with the elections. We have fear. Someone chooses to stay in the house instead of casting their vote. We have army involvement in elections, which is against the constitution, and can be my witness is that when you find an armed truck on the polling station, you might either choose to go back home instead of voting. Then voters have lost interest in the elections since they don't have impact on their lives, and also really kills morale because it doesn't bring anybody when you cast a vote well knowing that the person will not win. We are giving out what can be done. For example, one of our members said can lower the voting age. We can also digitalize the voting so that you can vote using digital machines. We can also advocate for moving these army guys from the army, from our polling stations. Then we can also enhance social media awareness campaign so that we can create more awareness. I had a scenario whereby my mother thought that this day is still in FDC. So you can imagine how somebody can come even to the police station knowing that the guy is not yet in prison. Then voting on weekends, and also my member here will supplement on other solutions. You're welcome.
1 minute, just 1 minute.
Hello everyone. I'm going to start on online voting options. you can opt to use online voting. And second one, you can use mobile voting stations. And you can also reward for voting. You can put, like, when you vote, we are going to give you sodas. So the voters will be interested in voting. Extend voting hours or on weekends, because some voters, they are busy during the weekdays. So when you extend the voting on weekends, many people will vote. Then voting awareness, road shows. Here you can use you can use those cars with music when you're saying, like, you vote Uncle Yusuf, it will be like this, like this. So even those people, those things, those cars will reach villages where people are not aware of voting. Thank you.
A very big thanks to group 1 and group 3 for your presentations. And we remember to cite the index. Make sure when you go, you download the index. When your campaign, you keep citing the index according to the Global Participation Index 2025, blah blah. The other years also come. We try now to be rising, either a sharp or increase or a slow, things like that. We go to the next.
Good morning once again. Sorry, maybe I am presenting at the wrong time. Anga is doing us well. Anyway, I'll be as brief as possible. The dimension of interest is political affairs, and the target population is the young people with disabilities. And honestly, in Uganda, we lack clear data on young people with disabilities who actively participate in elections. And we don't have that at hand. Whenever elections are conducted by the Electoral Commission, maybe the electoral process is soon, you don't hear anything about persons with disabilities who are young, and anything intended that directly goes to them. And honestly, I have a lot of times not been participating in voting just because of a lot of issues that are affecting us. And you realize that during voting, there are several issues that happen and give us a huge challenge, and one of them is communication barrier. A person with hearing impairment, for me to participate actively, and there must be information that I was saying, one of the challenges that we face young people with disabilities is communication barrier, and particularly this category that lives with hearing impairment. Of course, they have to access information in sign language, and it misses out. Maybe somebody living with physical disabilities, such needs a helper, and you may find they're not there to take them to the voting station. We have use of the electoral college system. Elections of persons with disabilities, selected persons participate, not everyone is involved. And what is the possibility that this category selected will choose the interests of everyone? So this means that this category selected, the few who are chosen choose persons of their interest, forgetting the majorities, and that needs to be handled. Underrepresentation. You notice that the MPs in Parliament representing persons with disabilities, they're few, and you can't hear there's maybe one in particular that represents those with representing those young people with disabilities. And we young people with disabilities, trust me, we have a lot of issues and we need that representation. And how do we handle these challenges that we're going through? If possible, the Electoral Commission should conduct intended research on how best young people with disabilities can be engaged in the electoral process. Constant, maybe workshops and electoral reforms to meet our needs. Because there is lack of information that directly benefits us. And if this is handled, we young people with disabilities can actively participate. And trust me, if this is done, then we can be there. Availability of raw data, legal data on persons with disabilities. Thank you so much.